Hello everybody, my name is Khanya Mkoto and I am the director and founder of the Young Catalyst. As you know, our tagline is Igniting Tomorrow's Leaders, and today we are shooting with our favorite media company, Guyasha Media. If you want to know the reason for this particular episode, it's a recap episode of our favorite moments, or my favorite moments specifically as a director of the Young Catalyst. It's a mid-season review of everything we've done with the Young Conversations. So, just stay tuned. Hopefully we can give you a couple of laughs. Hopefully we can give you a couple of lessons, and you will basically hear what some of my favorite moments are, and maybe you can tell us what your favorite moments were from this particular season that we've had, because we would love to hear from you. So, just make sure you interact and engage with us. Episode 1, on the panel was Ofarai Mbawa from Africa Matters, my friend, what's up? And Shakira Chinara, who's also my friend. It was just a group of my friends who are young leaders as well. And then Nokama Mavovana, who's a producer for one of the big radio stations in the country, and she's also a part of the Young Catalyst. And then Godfrey Matebane was also a part of that first episode. So it was our launch episode. So it was very important that we kind of set the intention clear for that episode as to how do we want to introduce ourselves to you guys? How do we want to be known? What is it that we want to share, and what is it that we want to say? And that particular episode, it was very important that that was clear. So, we're a group of really young, vibrant people who are passionate about social change. So our first episode was on activism in South Africa and how it looks like. And we touched on so many issues in that first episode. I was the host of that episode. We touched on so many issues. We touched on, Nomza Mombat and the cosmopolitan debate of her being an activist or not. We touched on the Adam Katsavela's, issue with racism that, was trending at that exact time. We also looked at how activism really looks. So, my favorite part on episode 1, which was the activism in South Africa conversation, was when Farai spoke about being a keyboard warrior. So, have a listen.
So to be a keyboard warrior is not enough.
Yeah.
Everyone can be a keyboard warrior because you've got the defense of a computer. So while you're woke and you're participating in the woke Olympics, which I think is also quite destructive, you're making some changes, but it's not tangible change,
Yeah.
And I think that, it has to be two things. Firstly, we need to recognize that activism is an everyday choice.
Yeah.
Some people will wake up and be like, you know what, today I'm going to be an activist for race. Tomorrow I'll be an activist for gender. But you must live that decision every single day.
Absolutely.
So it's this, and you can't self-select which issue is more important. The second thing is that all these issues we talk about, unemployment, education, race, sexuality, gender, everything is intersectional. So I don't believe in people that say, I'll stand up for black people, but I won't stand up for gay people. Because it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
All of these oppressions are continuously interlinked.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing is that we need to, as I mentioned before, we need to wake up every day and not be allies. I hate the term allies. I think allies are ineffective.
Yeah.
I've known many allies that have stood with me in gender-based violence protests, and then 2 weeks later, they're being accused of gender-based violence.
Yeah.
I think you need to be an accomplice.
Absolutely.
And the accomplice makes a decision every day to say, you know what, I'm going to stand up for X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to display that in my actions. So if I'm at work and a colleague is being racist, I'm going to call them out.
Yeah.
If I'm at a club and the bouncer is being homophobic, I'm going to deal with that. If I'm talking about unemployment, I'm going to find a way to make that change, even if it means, we all sit here in very privileged positions. What we could actively do to tackle unemployment is to get a few young people and to mentor them with skills and tools, write recommendations, CVs, provide that guidance. But I think we have to be accomplices, we can't be allies.
Yeah, look into the camera and tell you, yeah. I mean, I was excited more than nervous about episode 1, you know, but it's always very important for me for our intention to be met. Our intention as an organization is to, you know, basically have a platform which is encouraging to people, and also a platform where people can see, you know, reflections of themselves, and where we can also raise these type of issues that we were talking about in this particular episode. So I was nervous for it, and excited more than anything, more than nervous, because it was the launch of a long-time dream for myself that I've had in terms of creating a platform which connects people. You know, as much as Farai spoke about how it is not enough to be a keyboard warrior, I think Shakira Tunara, Dr. Shakira Tunara, excuse me, she will get on my case. Dr. Shakira Tunara, who's an activist in public health, a young woman who's doing amazing, said something very important about how social media is the most powerful weapon that you can use right now to actually, you know, make changes in the world, and you know, it somehow connects people. So she kind of also, you know, spoke on the importance of social media and what it actually serves in raising awareness about particular issues. So social media can help, and I guess it's supporting Farai's fact as well, because Farai didn't say that, you know, social media is not useful. So I think for me that was another standout point. So yeah.
So even though I like your lipstick, Jenny, I'm going to disagree with you and play devil's advocate. And I think, Godfrey, you may enjoy this, right? I think that social media is the most powerful tool on the planet at the moment.
Yeah.
Through social media, I've met policymakers. I've literally, when I go for conferences, pop them a message and say, can I meet you? And they actually meet you.
Yeah.
I've fostered a connection with the Director General of the World Health Organization through Twitter. So for me, activism has different levels.
Yeah.
You can use it as a means to an end, I think. And then I think my final bit is to come back to you, Khanya, when you asked about young people on the African continent and how do we build activism there. And my dream in 10 or 20 or 30 years' time is not just in healthcare, but this last year working with young people, is that we are so powerful. This is the age where you're not conforming, where you're not just going to work for the sake of going to work, where you're creative, where you have this discussion, this panel discussion with, you know,
this amazing balls.
You know, it's better than the United Nations. And that creativity has to be harnessed.
So episode 2, we spoke on the health crisis. Dr. Shakira Tunara was heading up the panel. There was Jackson Mahlaba as well in the panel, who's a researcher. And then there was also Une Limsom and Joan van Dijk as well. Is it Van Dijk? I hope it is. But she was on the panel as well. They are basically Becky Sisa, Mail and Guardian journalists. So they write on, you know, public health in the country. And my favorite moment there in that particular conversation was from Jackson, where he spoke about how as a country, you know, we sometimes wait for things to get out of order, we wait for a crisis to actually react, and this was referring to a building which burnt in Johannesburg Central. Have a listen.
I found it really fascinating that even the National Department of Health offices are not operational. We had the fire going on in Joburg, but I hear that in Pretoria now, even the glass doors don't open that were put in a brand new building, not operational. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Shakira, it's hard hitting, it's painful I just recently found out that people in that building work until 1 o'clock because of the circumstances that they're facing within that building. So now we wonder, why are we struggling with our service delivery? Let me make an example. That building houses, when new medication comes into the country, it has to be registered in the country. That building registers this medication. We have a backlog of these registrations. Why is that? People are leaving work at 1 o'clock. But at the same time, can you blame them for leaving work at 1 o'clock? Who would want to leave home and go and work under those unhospitable circumstances? So what is the department doing? As we were talking off camera earlier, I was saying, why is South Africa becoming this nation of waiting until situations are so out of hand before we try and come up with solutions? Why do we resort to such extreme measures to try and resolve our issues that we face in South Africa, like the tweets that we're seeing over and over in South Africa? Can't we just find solutions before things get out of hand? I mean, they talk about these buildings and they say they've been writing memorandums, they've been writing to the right people to say we are struggling under these conditions. Why have they been quiet all this time and not and not meeting the workers?
I think what we can do as, the ordinary person is to be as vocal as possible, because Joan made an example in the panel where she was speaking about how funds will go to the, wherever the noise is the loudest, usually funds or attention will go there. So it seems for me, in terms of the health sector, is that the best thing that we would do is to actually care about it enough to speak about it and make noise about it, so that the government actually responds to some of the grievances that we hold as patients who actually go to hospitals. And main takeaway there was also that the health sector, for it to become a better sector as a whole, there needs to be a change in that the focus needs to be on the patient. So from government, from the top to the bottom, from government to the nurse, the focus needs to be on the patient so that patients actually get adequate care. And the resources that government should be plowing to the health sector, unfortunately they are not coming through, because if we see the state of our public hospitals, it's just ridiculous. So the government needs to actually respond to what is actually happening in the country, specifically in terms of the state of our hospitals, because there's a huge gap between public hospitals and private hospitals.
I think it's another example of just, the money's going to go where you shout the loudest. So we've been making noise about the cancer crisis, and then when Ramaphosa was elected, he's like, okay, we're going to give money to this cancer crisis. People have been making noise about it. And I think the issue of the building, even the building being in such a bad state, in effect, it's just another symptom of the collapse. I don't know what more we can really make of it. Than that. It's just there's so much. We basically have so many problems that we have to start deciding where we're going to fight. So they've, for a long time, I think HIV and TB was a big focus of all our money and energy went into that. Infrastructure, I think, has obviously fallen by the wayside in hospitals as well. I honestly just think it's a symptom of the bigger pressures on the health system and its budget and money flow.
It was very important for me and for us as a team to basically have someone who had a very good, well-rounded, detailed knowledge view of the subject matter that was being discussed. And for episode 1, why I did it, I felt, in terms of hosting, it was very important that because I know what the intention of the organization is and the tone that I wanted to set. So me hosting it was me setting the tone for the hosts that would follow after me, of the type of conversation that I'd like us to have, and you know what I want it to look like, and you know, unfortunately us as a team agreed as well to that. Yeah. Yes, so episode 3 was on the experiences of some black women in corporate SA. And in the panel, there was Ulirato, who was the host. There was also Ulwando, Utatambo, kunye noThandeka. And that was our panel for the experiences of some black women in corporate South Africa. So we had Ulirato because she has a lot of experience when it comes to, you know, working with women within corporate. She has an organization called Career Regent, and then she is also a recruitment person. So she has pretty much a good idea as to, you know, the experiences and grievances of black women in corporate South Africa, and has the right network to be able to source, you know, the ladies for this type of conversation that you know, we had in episode 3, which was the experiences of black women in corporate South Africa. So that's why we chose her. So my favorite moment in this particular episode is a moment from Utatambo where she speaks about how she'd rather die standing than live on her knees. What a powerful statement. She'd rather die standing than live on her knees. Yeah, have a listen.
I think all I had was to be myself, you know, and because I walk in the room, I'm already the only black person, and everyone is aware of that, and I'm aware of that. And then I'm the only female, and everyone's aware of that, and I'm aware of that. And then I quickly realized that, okay, so how's about maybe you just try being you, and you see where it goes, you know? So, like, I wear my African print clothes on a Saturday, I wear them on a Monday, I wear them on a Wednesday. And I think that was probably just an unexpected blessing. And since then, I think as I've grown in the company, I've always just continued to be that. I think also trying to be more conscious of the more you get into leadership spaces, to not be afraid to have those conversations. And it's uncomfortable for people, you can see, but I strongly believe in that, you know, I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. And I have to take it as far as I can, and if at some point it's like, okay, then let's throw it down, at least they must know that, yeah, the Jumbo though, she gave us a good run for our money on these topics, because it's important. I think people will never change unless they're uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's the truth, and that's why BE is important, and that's why affirmative action is important, because I'm also inclined to support black women. I'm a black woman, I'm inclined to support black women. White people are white people, they're inclined to support white people, you know? And you need an external factor to come in and disrupt to force that diversity. And that's a fact. It's never gonna happen over a beer of us chatting. It's gonna happen in an uncomfortable way. It's gonna happen with us calling it out. And some people will listen and some will not, and some will go home and say, oh, there's these crazy girls at work who are causing havoc, you know? But we have to try. And I think that's what, as I've grown in the company, always kept in mind.
So the reason why this particular conversation was so important is that we're in a country where, you know, corporate South Africa is such a huge contributor to our economy, and most of us, you know, not most of us, but some of us go into corporate South Africa. It's first of all a very white dominated space in terms of leadership. It's also a very male dominated space, so it's a white male dominated space. And you know, this particular conversation was very important because we basically hear how black women navigate that space where, you know, there are particular hurdles that they need to climb over, and there are, you know, particular stories as well that they've, you know, experienced. And it was very important for me that black women share those experiences so that other black women who are actually watching can see reflections of themselves and can basically learn on how these women have basically navigated this type of space and how some of them have managed to move, within a space like this. And as I said, one of my highlights being the statement that, from Utatambo, who was in the panel, that she would rather die standing than live on her knees. It speaks about how important it is to shake the table up so that we can make way for more black women within corporate South Africa. So for me, that's why the conversation was particularly important. Hey guys, did you guys watch episode 4? Did you? Okay, well I did. Episode 4 was basically on SMMEs and financing. It was hosted by Khanya Mkoto. Khanya Mkoto heads up our annual entrepreneurship seminar and is very passionate about finance and entrepreneurship. She was joined on the panel by Brandon, Nicole, and Luyanda, and Altif as well. I'm so glad I didn't forget anyone. But she was joined by those amazing 4 people. I mean, such amazing brands represented there. The United Nations, Edge Growth, the People's Fund as well. You can look them all up. Just a really, really powerful panel who knew what they were talking about. I mean, in terms of entrepreneurship and financing. So you should really, really check this conversation out. As a young leader, me and Kuyasha Media CEO are basically so passionate about the Sustainable Development Goals. So I love that in this conversation that they actually spoke about Sustainable Development Goals and how to basically implement them. So for me, my favorite part in this particular episode came from Altif, who basically spoke about the importance of this one particular sustainable goal, which could help all the others, or many of the other sustainable goals, which is to eradicate poverty. So for me, that was a huge highlight. Bukelani, man, come on.
In looking at the international economy, looking at best practices and understanding those cash flows. So as my fellow panelists mentioned, looking at the economies that have done best. So you look at China, India, Brazil, where they've uplifted millions of people out of poverty. They single-handedly have enabled us to reach the UN targets, the Millennium Development Goals of decreasing poverty by doing certain things and looking at what is the key things that they've done the same. Some things that they've done, and as you mentioned, is opening up their economies to international flows. So they've opened up their economies and they've liberalized their rules at home. Looking at South Africa particularly, we see that we've actually fallen in global standards of ease of doing business. And if we are fighting and saying we need entrepreneurship, that should be one of the key factors that we should be chasing. We should make it easier to be entrepreneurs, easier to fail multiple times. It should be easier to hire people, easier to restructure your business, easier to liquidate also, because those things come hand in hand. Because you're scared to leave your business, you can't liquidate if there's no second chance. I think those are the key factors. And when you talk about international flows, I think it's almost using an example of an employee in the business. Those international flows are almost a bonus that comes into the company. And if you take the typical worker, he works for his company for a year, he behaves well, he does a good job, and his business does well, then he gets a bonus at the end of the year. And in the same way, South Africa needs to continuously behave well to achieve that, and the economy, the international economy, has to do well at the same time for those flows to come in. So sometimes it's a long-term reputation game where you continuously have to hit those metrics, make it easier in the long term, and prevent the short-term thinking of how do we solve things today, thinking how do we change the structures to make it more open, make it easier for global businesses to invest locally, and make it easier for us to export as well.
My second highlight was from Uluyanda from the People's Fund. The guy with the big smile, they say. So it was from him, and he was speaking on how he feels that the issue with entrepreneurship is not necessarily capital, but in the way that entrepreneurship is taught. Have a watch for those who don't understand.
We're definitely 100% sure there's no shortage of capital. There's a shortage of fundable businesses. That's actually the biggest problem in the country. I think entrepreneurship is being taught wrong, and it scares me that government has delegated entrepreneurship development through corporate spending and that sort of thing, that the income divide is increasing across the races in the country, and also the education in entrepreneurship is getting worse and worse. What people consider what they need to know. Most entrepreneurs who try to apply on our platform have no understanding of accounting, right? Basic understanding of accounting, because, and you always ask the question, how do you expect to grow a business just on PR? Because the lifeblood of a business is actually its financial. So I think the education element in entrepreneurship needs to change. And we need to stop glamorizing entrepreneurship,
Yeah, so my God, I'm gonna cry. Oh, that's careless heterosexual people. Yo, guys, I hate that bad gay. So the last conversation was on, it was a candid conversation between 4 gay men. I was a part of that conversation. I was the host. Upumlani was also a part of that conversation. Shout out to him. And Usi Yakumalo, who is the author of You Have to Be Gay to Know G.O.D. You should actually get the book, it's a very nice book. And then Cam Mudisani, a very influential person on social media, and he's a researcher, a very smart guy. So we were just basically speaking on our particular experiences in the gay community, and I don't know, I really just want to speak candidly on this one. It was a very personal conversation for me because I'm gay, and I've really noticed that people really just don't care, for gay people, heterosexual people, that is, mostly. And it's such a sad thing, to be honest, because it starts from the nuclear part of society, which is our homes, where you can't go home for holidays because you can't really be yourself, where derogatory jokes are made at home as well, and where you are so dehumanized that people don't care if you are dead or if you are alive. And I wrote a tweet which said, this world doesn't show no love towards a gay child. And I truly believe that, that we are unfortunately in a society that does not show much love towards a gay child. And that is why this particular conversation was important, because I wanted to have a very open and candid conversation, unrehearsed, where we can show the human elements of who we are, that we actually really no different to, our heterosexual counterparts. There's no reason why we should be separated in any way, because we have the same experiences. The only difference is sexual preference. So we should never be divided because of that. In this particular conversation, my highlight came from Usia Kumalo. Very, very smart, intelligent man who was sharing about how all these issues are basically intersected. I don't want to explain it much. You can actually listen to him speak about it, because he can explain it way better. But we'll speak about the intersectionality of these issues between, being a black person who's structurally and racially discriminated against, and being a gay person who experiences homophobia, that there's so much intersectionality in it. So have a listen and tell us what you think. I hope you enjoy it.
Now we're getting gay men who are emerging into the space, and one of my concerns is, are those gay men going to emerge into the space, own it, and then leave everybody else behind? Or are they going to use that position to say, guys, we still have other social issues we need to solve? For an example, the reason homosexuality, the reason is tabooed, the reason homophobia exists is because misogyny exists. So the hatred of women. And society was supposed to be structured to reinforce male dominance over women's bodies. And the whole LGBTIQ plus community just said, actually no, we have other ways of living life. And because we would not play into the male dominance of women or patriarchy, we are now othered. So our biggest problem is misogyny. We need to solve that. We can't just make the world safe for gay black men. We actually need to also look at black people being endangered by misogyny, because in this country, predominantly the victims of gender-based violence will be women.
Absolutely.
The most vulnerable people will be women. We then look at that, and it's the whole intersectionality of oppressions thing. I think we have a responsibility. The more empowered you are economically, it's not just, you're not just empowered for freedom, but also for responsibility, I feel. And I'm wondering the extent to which we as gay black men are ready to take that mantle on, to take that responsibility on. And are we ready? Are we prepared? Are we mature enough?
Another highlight from that particular episode was from Upumlani, who spoke about self-love and how, his relationships with guys, he started to realize that, they were lacking because of a lack of self-love, and also because of, being a fatherless son. Who grew up for most of his life without his father. So I think a lot of us can relate to that type of trauma. So have a listen and just chew it up, imnandi.
So my thing is, like, when it comes to love in the gay community, I believe we don't have love for one another. So I will start there. So I can't talk on love because I haven't experienced it in the gay community, but also in terms of personally how I've received love in my life. It's influenced how I look at relationships, but also how I give love as well. So I'm at a point now in my life where I am learning self-love, because I did an audit of all my relationships, and I looked at how I was receiving love in that relationship. And the one thing that I found is what I was saying to Cam, is that I struggle in relationships with men because of my relationship with my dad. My dad passed away when I was 7, so I never got to experience that love of a father or a male figure in my life. It's not really necessary, but you see how it translates in your life as an adult, because a lot of things that we experience as adults come from our childhood. So childhood trauma can impact you as an adult. So when it comes to loving a man, I have found that I have this thing of, I idolize you because that's how I also view my dad. Like, I didn't know my dad that well because of the fact that he died when I was young, so I don't remember much about him. I remember a few instances. So I have this idealization of my dad where I have so much love for him, and I don't know much about him, but I do know enough to love him. So it also translates my relationship in the sense that I will make this person my all, forgetting about myself. And that's why my previous relationship, like, I feel like that person is like the love of my life, if I can say, where I gave myself selflessly to the person, and then when we broke up, I just was lost. I didn't know who I was, I didn't know what I stood for, and it took a while to get me to this point where now I'm experiencing and I'm teaching myself self-love in order to be able to give it to someone else. So it's been an interesting journey when it comes to the topic of love in my life, because I've had to look at my relationship with my dad, as I said, but also relationship with male figures in my life. So my uncles, everyone else, and how they give me love and how I translate that to other people. So I've just been working on myself now in terms of just finding self-love so that I'm able to love another guy again.
All the conversations that we had, they were all the topics, that is, you know, in terms of subject matter, they were all pre-written, pre-planned. We knew what they were going to be. And we have a producer in the show who is Utama Gwini, who basically helps us with organizing and finding the guests that we want to be a part of the shows. You know, in terms of the actual themes of the conversations, I was very involved in making sure that we spoke about subject matters that are very pertinent to South Africa. You know, the planning of the show is hectic in the sense that, you know, we're all busy, we're all young professionals who are working, but we basically have such a commitment to what we're doing, which is the Young Catalyst Conversations. So we need to go from trying to, you know, we've got the topic, we've got the episode, we need to try and organize who's going to be in the panel, who's going to be leading the panel. And that can sometimes be a struggle in itself, but because of all our different networks and how we worked together, it was, you know, very easy to be able to actually access the right people. And after that, after finding the right people, it's about having the candid conversation when we get to the venue. We meet with Kuyasha Media and we do the actual taping, getting the chairs together, making sure the set is fine. And thank God for Pineapple SA for basically sponsoring us with that venue, because, you know, that venue has become our home as well. So we're really thankful. So it's just after we get there, it's all balls rolling, and the conversation just starts and we do our thing. Yeah. Yes, so that's it. The year is basically done. And we've basically taped all our episodes. And we just want to thank you for all your amazing support. Want to thank you for all your comments. Want to thank you for wanting to be involved in this initiative. We will definitely involve more of you next year. And we want to wish you a happy holiday. Also, thank you to the Young Catalyst team. You guys are incredible. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without all of us. And also Kuyasha Media, incredible media team there, which has been supporting us through this journey of the Young Conversations. And then also Pineapple, yo man, you know, your home is our home. So we want to thank you for that venue. Thank you so much, guys. You must have a really wonderful festive season, and I hope that you've gained and learned something from us, and I hope, you know, you can learn more about and live out more of the values we've tried to bring out in these particular episodes. Values of inclusivity, values of making a change, values of you have a purpose. So yeah, that's it from us, Igniting Tomorrow's Leaders. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, subscribe to Kuyasha Media's channel as well, and make sure that you like us on social media, the Young Catalyst, and you also like Kuyasha Media as well. Acha! Shap. Projects for next year. We're going to carry on with the Young Catalyst Conversations. We are looking forward to engaging with you more. Please subscribe. It's very important that you do. We want you guys to view these conversations. We want to make a positive contribution in society, and we want you to be a part of that. And then also the Young Catalyst Academics. It's been doing so well, you know, with retweets from Fab Academic, which is, Professor Pakeng, who's the Vice Chancellor of UCT. Thank you so much for your support. And also NRF as well for reposting some of, the articles that we've posted. We are so thankful for the support we are getting from big educational institutions. So there's a lot that's going to come from us there. We really want to work with universities to spread the importance of education and also the importance of mental health within education. So just look out for that next year. And that's it from us. Those are our 2 big projects, and we could have a conference coming up. But hey, let me not say much there. Sharp. Igniting tomorrow's leaders.